Most men don't realize this, but the very thing they call strength is slowly destroying them. Stress is not just an emotion, it's a chemical reaction in your body. When a man bottles up frustration, anger, or worry and pretends he's fine, his body releases cortisol. And here's the danger: cortisol doesn't just vanish after the problem passes. It lingers. It keeps blood pressure elevated, it weakens the immune system, and it triggers belly fat storage. Over time, that stress load silently eats away at the heart, the arteries, even the brain. Women, on the other hand, are more likely to talk about what's bothering them, to cry, to share, to release. That simple act helps lower their stress hormones. Men, however, often wear stress like armor, thinking it makes them invincible, when in reality it's shaving years off their life. And here's something even more concerning. Men have a habit of ignoring the early warning signs their bodies give them. A little chest tightness, they call it indigestion. Constant fatigue, they blame it on work. That nagging pain, they say it will go away on its own, but the truth is, these small symptoms are often the body's alarm system, a signal that something deeper is wrong. Women in general are more proactive. They'll schedule the appointment, they'll ask questions, they'll get checked. Men, on the other hand, push through, waiting until the problem has grown so severe that it demands emergency attention. And by then, the damage is often already done. What could have been reversed early becomes a crisis simply because it was ignored. That silent delay, thinking toughness means doing nothing, becomes one of the biggest reasons men's lives are cut short. There's also a biological factor that gives women an advantage, especially in their younger years. Estrogen, the primary female hormone, acts like a shield for the heart and blood vessels. It helps keep arteries flexible, supports healthy cholesterol levels, and reduces the risk of heart disease. Men don't have that built-in protection, which means from the start, their cardiovascular system is under greater strain. This is why heart attacks are far more common in men at earlier ages. But here's what most men don't realize: just because they lack estrogen's protection doesn't mean they're doomed. Lifestyle choices can either accelerate that risk or compensate for it. Eating clean, keeping insulin low, managing stress, and strengthening the cardiovascular system through activity can act as a substitute shield. The problem is, most men don't take advantage of those tools, so the absence of estrogen exposes them to diseases that could have been largely prevented. Another powerful reason men cut their lives short is the way they handle risk. Men are wired to push limits, to prove strength by testing boundaries, whether it's driving too fast, taking dangerous jobs, or ignoring safety because it feels weak. That constant pattern of risk-taking doesn't just show up in physical dangers, it shows up in lifestyle choices too. Overeating, drinking too much, skipping sleep, pushing the body beyond its limits, all of it adds up. And while women generally tend to be more cautious, men often equate risk with courage, not realizing that these repeated behaviors carve away at longevity. What feels like toughness in the moment is actually a slow gamble with their own lifespan, and most don't even see the cost until it's too late. And when the pressure builds up, men often reach for the wrong coping mechanisms. Instead of finding healthy outlets, they drown stress in alcohol, light another cigarette, or grab fast food loaded with sugar and refined carbs. It might feel like relief in the moment, but what's really happening is damage on a cellular level. The liver struggles to keep up, insulin spikes, arteries clog, and inflammation spreads through the body like a slow, burning fire. Women, on the other hand, are more likely to talk, to lean on a support system, or to choose healthier coping methods. Men confuse numbing the stress with managing it, but all they're really doing is stacking the odds against themselves. Over time, these habits don't just shorten life, they make the years that remain weaker and sicker. One of the most overlooked dangers for men is how easily they accumulate fat around the midsection. That belly fat is not just extra weight, it's metabolically active. It pumps out inflammatory chemicals, drives insulin resistance, and puts enormous strain on the heart and liver. This is why men with large waistlines are at far greater risk for diabetes, heart disease, and even certain cancers. Women often store fat differently, more in the hips and thighs, which doesn't create the same toxic effect. But for men, that visceral fat sitting deep around the organs is like carrying a ticking time bomb. Every extra inch around the waist is shaving years off life expectancy, and yet many men accept it as normal aging, instead of seeing it for what it really is, a direct signal that the body is in serious metabolic distress. Another hidden killer that men often underestimate is sleep deprivation. Men pride themselves on pushing through long nights, working late, waking early, and functioning on fumes as if needing rest is a weakness. But sleep is not optional. It's when the body repairs, when the brain detoxifies, when hormones like testosterone are replenished. Without it, the immune system weakens, the heart strains harder, and metabolism falls apart. Over time, lack of sleep accelerates aging, lowers energy, and silently drives chronic disease. Women, in many cases, are more protective of their rest, but men often trade it for productivity, not realizing that the very thing they're sacrificing is the foundation of their health. Missing sleep doesn't just make you tired, it shortens your lifespan. Something else that takes years off men's lives is the way they isolate themselves. Women tend to build networks of friends, talk through problems, and create strong emotional bonds that act like a buffer against stress. Men, on the other hand, often withdraw. They keep struggles to themselves, spend more time alone, and see reaching out as a sign of weakness. But isolation is toxic. It raises the risk of depression, it increases stress hormones, and it even elevates the likelihood of heart disease and stroke. Human connection is not just emotional support, it's a biological need. When men cut themselves off, their bodies pay the price. That quiet loneliness, often hidden behind a strong exterior, chips away at health just as much as poor diet or lack of exercise. Another major factor is how men are conditioned from a young age. They're told to man up, to never show weakness, to endure pain in silence. And while that might sound noble, it becomes dangerous when applied to health. Instead of admitting fatigue, stress, or discomfort, they bury it. Instead of asking for help, they tough it out, but the body doesn't care about pride, it only responds to neglect. By the time men finally acknowledge something is wrong, the issue has often advanced into something much harder to reverse. Women are generally more willing to seek help, to ask questions, to intervene early. Men equate seeking help with weakness, when in reality, it's the strongest decision they could make. This cultural conditioning is not just a mindset, it's one of the reasons men don't live as long. And here's the truth that most men don't want to hear, but they desperately need to. The gap between men's and women's lifespans is not written in stone. It is not fate, it is not inevitable, and it is not entirely genetic. In fact, the majority of the difference comes down to something far more uncomfortable to admit: lifestyle. The small, repeated daily choices men make, or fail to make, become the silent architects of their shorter lives. Think about it. Every single day, a man chooses whether to fuel his body with real nutrition or with food that slowly poisons his system. Every night, he chooses whether to give his body rest and repair or to sacrifice recovery for one more hour of work or entertainment. Every stressful situation offers him a choice: suppress and ignore, or process and release. Every symptom he feels is another choice: pretend it's nothing, or address it before it becomes catastrophic. None of these decisions look dramatic in the moment, but string them together over decades, and they write the story of an early death. Now let's be clear, genetics do play a role. Yes, women naturally have protective hormones like estrogen earlier in life. Yes, women generally metabolize stress differently, but science shows that only a fraction of lifespan is determined by DNA. The rest, up to 80 or 90%, is dictated by lifestyle factors. This means the actual reason men die before women isn't because their biology dooms them. It's because, in practice, they give their biology the worst possible conditions to thrive in. Let's take diet, for example. Many men grow up thinking food is just fuel, something you grab on the go, something fast and convenient. Burgers, pizza, soda. It's quick, it's filling, it feels satisfying in the moment. But over time, that kind of eating overwhelms the liver, spikes insulin again and again, clogs arteries, and fills the belly with visceral fat. And here's the kicker. Most men won't notice the damage until it's far advanced. They may look strong on the outside, but internally, their systems are breaking down. Women, on average, tend to be more mindful about what they eat. They may still make unhealthy choices, but culturally, they're more likely to pay attention to nutrition, weight, and health trends. That alone helps extend their lifespan. Then there's exercise. Men are often told they're strong, natural athletes built to push through. But after their younger years, many stop moving in a way that actually supports long-term health. They might lift heavy weights occasionally or do short bursts of intense activity, but they neglect the steady, consistent movement that supports the heart, brain, and metabolism. Sedentary jobs, long hours at desks, endless screen time, these habits gradually stiffen arteries, weaken muscles, and accelerate aging. Women, even if not athletic, often maintain more consistent levels of daily activity, whether it's walking, stretching, or lighter forms of exercise. Again, the small choices add up. Stress management may be the most underestimated factor of all. Men wear stress like a badge of honor. They think if they can carry a heavier load, they're winning, but the body doesn't care about pride. It only responds to chemistry. Stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, when constantly elevated, are corrosive. They damage blood vessels, increase inflammation, suppress immunity, and wreak havoc on digestion and sleep. Women, because they often talk about stress or share burdens socially, may lower those levels naturally through emotional release. Men, by bottling it up, live in a constant state of biological warfare against their own organs. Sleep, too, is a massive factor. A man who brags about functioning on 4 or 5 hours a night doesn't realize he's cutting off years of his life. Lack of sleep depletes testosterone, disrupts insulin, weakens the brain's ability to clean itself, and accelerates every form of degeneration. It's not just fatigue, it's like fast-forwarding the aging process. Women, culturally, may be more protective of their routines, more likely to rest when needed, and that alone gives them an edge. And then we come to perhaps the biggest invisible factor, mindset. Men have been taught that toughness means not caring about health until it's an emergency. But toughness is not ignoring pain. Toughness is facing reality before it becomes a crisis. Men convince themselves that going to the doctor is unnecessary, that making better food choices is too much effort, that prioritizing rest is laziness. They've been sold a cultural script that strength equals neglect, when in reality, strength is discipline, foresight, and taking responsibility before it's too late. Let me give you a picture to drive this home. Imagine two men, both are 40 years old. The first lives by the old script. Fast food daily, 5 hours of sleep, never exercises, works 60 hours a week, drinks on the weekends, and laughs off stress because that's just life. By 50, he has high blood pressure, creeping weight gain, maybe some chest pains he shrugs off. By 60, he's on 3 or 4 medications, constantly tired, and facing heart disease or diabetes that could have been prevented. His body is collapsing not because of fate, but because of accumulated neglect. Now look at the second man. Same age, same genetics, but he makes different choices. He focuses on nutrient-dense foods, vegetables, quality protein, healthy fats. He prioritizes sleep like it's medicine, giving his body the recovery it needs. He moves daily not with the goal of being a bodybuilder, but to keep his system strong and flexible. He manages stress through exercise, through reflection, through healthy outlets instead of numbing behaviors. And here's the difference. By 60, his body is still resilient, his energy still high, and his health markers stable. He has added not just years to his life, but life to his years. That difference between the first man and the second isn't luck. It's choice. This is why I say the actual reason men die before women is preventable. It's not about blaming biology. It's about realizing that most of the damage is self-inflicted. And here's the motivational piece that men need to hear. Every single one of those destructive patterns can be reversed. The body is incredibly forgiving if given the right conditions. Clean up the diet and the liver begins to heal. Prioritize sleep and hormones rebalance. Manage stress properly and blood pressure drops. Start moving consistently and metabolism reignites. Stop numbing the body with alcohol and processed foods and energy returns. It doesn't take perfection, it takes consistency. Now, imagine if men embraced health as part of their identity instead of seeing it as optional. Imagine if toughness meant protecting the body, not punishing it. Imagine if discipline extended to food choices, to rest, to stress management. The cultural narrative could change from men die younger to men live longer, stronger, and healthier lives because they choose to. That possibility is real. The biggest tragedy is not that men die before women, it's that they don't have to. The tools, the knowledge, and the habits that extend life are available. What's missing is the willingness to take them seriously before it's too late. Most men wait for the wake-up call, the heart attack, the diabetes diagnosis, the emergency surgery. And only then do they ask, what should I do differently? But the truth is, the answer was always there. It was hidden in the daily choices, the ignored symptoms, the neglected habits. So here's the challenge. If men want to close the lifespan gap, they need to redefine strength. Strength is not pretending you're fine while your body breaks down. Strength is not grinding yourself into the ground while sacrificing your health. Strength is not gambling with your own life because society told you to ignore the warning signs. True strength is discipline, awareness, and the courage to take responsibility. True strength is showing up for your health so you can show up for your family, your purpose, and your future. The reason men die before women is not destiny. It's a pattern built on stress, neglect, poor coping, and misplaced pride. But patterns can be broken, habits can be reshaped, and the moment a man decides that his health is worth fighting for, his future changes. The power is not out of his hands, it has been in his hands all along. So if we step back and look at the big picture, the reason men die before women isn't some mysterious curse written in their DNA. It's the accumulation of daily choices repeated year after year, until the body simply can't keep up. Stress ignored, symptoms dismissed, poor food choices, lack of sleep, dangerous coping habits. All of it compounds. But here's the good news, none of this is fixed. Men have the power to rewrite their story. By changing how they see strength, by making health a priority instead of an afterthought, they can not only close the gap with women but actually add years of quality, vibrant living to their lives. The real question isn't why men die younger, it's whether they're willing to take ownership of their health and live with the strength and discipline their families, their purpose, and their future deserve.